sure they put some kind of filler in there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hello, children. We are always late, but we are here. I hope they got my audio together. We'll be fixing the lights a little bit. Let me sit up here. Maybe I'm not in the shadows. Today, I have with me my guests are 3 members of the Morales Shakur Coordinating Committee. As you know, I don't know if you know or not, but most of my politically astute viewers know that there is a big push to close the center at where is it, NYU? City College. Oh, that's right, NYU is the doctors and lawyers and masters of the universe. City College up in Harlem. And we're going to be talking to 3 members of that group. That's Brother Shep from the Black Panther Party, who is, well, he's an original Panther, you know. Once a Panther, always a Panther. It's like Omerta. And we have 2 members from, give us your names, because I'm like late and confused, so help me out here. You are?
Alyssa Osorio. I'm part of the Morales Shakur Student Coordinating Committee, as well as Students for Educational Rights.
Okay, good, excellent. And
my name is Carlos Santa Cruz. I'm also part of the Morales Shakur Student Collective.
Okay, Alyssa and Carlos and Shep. If they have my opening ready, they're gonna put that on. I don't know if it's ready because we've had all sorts of technical difficulties. That's why we are a few seconds later than we would like to be. But we're going to talk to them, find out the types of things that they do. We have a couple of young people here who are very politically astute, so I'm going to try to find out how they got that way. What are some of the obstacles that they're facing in trying to keep the center open? What are some of the obstacles facing us as a community, specifically the Harlem community, specifically young people who have some concerns about the world we live in and how we go about making it a better world for everyone and everything. So as soon as these guys, I think they just got somebody else in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, there we go. Where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy. Excellent. We are back, and as you know, I am in a total state of confusion, so that gives me an opportunity to go right to Brother Shep so he can give us some background into what is going on at the Assata Shakur Gilbert Morales Center in City College.
Okay, peace to the audience, and thank you, Nat, for having us here to get this important information out. Basically, from historical perspectives, the center has really been under attack since its establishment in 1989, when it was won by a student struggle and community struggle dealing with the raise in tuition and also some of the curriculum issues that took place at City College during that time. So as part of the agreement between CUNY and the governor at that time and the student and community group, the center was awarded to the community to be an autonomous space, totally
Awarded by whom?
by CUNY.
By CUNY.
Yes, by
Okay.
CUNY under
Okay.
the governor's directions and so forth at that
Okay.
time. So the space was autonomous, that way we wouldn't have any interference from the administration.
Okay.
And
Okay.
from that time on, center has been relatively working very well by putting the community and the students together, dealing with different problems and issues and projects. We have been under attack even during that time. There was a lawsuit that had to be filed because the center was bugged illegally. They had
Bugged?
Yes, they had cameras and microphones inside of the center's smoke detectors, so they could listen to what was going on in the center.
Do you know who was bugging?
Security, CUNY security.
CUNY security
Yes.
was bugging the center.
Right. So, so that along with
And when was this?
this was basically in early 2000s, before prior to the time.
Turn of the millennium.
Yes. So after that,
Wow.
they took the sign down when someone complained and said that Asada and Guillermo were terrorists and the taxpayers' money shouldn't have.
But
these
neither
names
one
up.
of
course
them
not.
are in the center.
No, Guillermo and Asada were students at City College.
But I'm saying, at the time of bugging, I can safely
Oh, no.
say that
No.
Asada Shakur was not,
No, she was not.
you know.
Right.
So whatever you may think, whatever political opinion you have of Asada Shakur or Guillermo Morales, has absolutely nothing to do with bugging the students of the center, because neither one of those two people were anywhere near the center at
Correct.
the time they put the bugs in.
Nowhere near.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So the sign was removed, and the students made a call to the community to come and support. And from that point on, we're talking about 2006. We've been at the center, and community organizations have been organizing there, running programs out there, such as my organization.
What types of programs?
We had anti-police terror and brutality
Okay,
workshops
okay,
to teach people to be facilitators, to organize in the community. For 12 weeks, we had professional co-facilitators with myself that did those workshops. We had political education and cultural classes that took place, community PE, so people in the community could come in. We were about to start a free medical clinic there, utilizing some of our programs that we work with IFCO with. We have doctors.
Pastors for Peace?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Where the doctors go to Cuba and they,
Right.
get training, and we were going to open that up in the center, along with our other projects, medical projects, and the People Survival Program. The students tell you that their programs, but just basically from the community basis, we had many dignitaries that came and spoke at the center, whether it was from Cuba or Venezuela, from Africa. We had, during the weekends, we had a children's program there where we taught African culture and history to young people, and used the center as a basis for that program, which also included taking trips to the museum and different areas in the city that dealt with African history and culture. We had a lot of different programs, that were community-based out of there.
Okay. All right, Alyssa. I mean, I'll get back to what you're saying, because you said a lot of stuff, and basically the terrorist accusation seems to be predicated more on the types of people that you struggle for than any specific act of aggression.
Right,
you
and
know.
actually that's when this really started this year. At the
Yeah.
beginning of the year on May 2nd, when Asada was the first woman to be declared a terrorist and put on that list, and the $2 million bounty was put on her head. And the center was used as a focal point for the organizing for that. The whole Hands Off Asada campaign. We had a whole Hands Off Asada throughout New York City Day on the 9th, and the press conference was held there. Shortly after that, when students were dealing with General Petraeus coming in to teach.
The Asada Shakur scenario is from 1970. What is
Well, we're talking about when the center started in 89.
No, not the center. Not
we're
the
talking,
center.
yeah, we're talking about the early 70s.
The early 70s.
Right.
I'm assuming that neither one of you were born in the early 70s.
No, not yet.
All right. Just checking. So, what Assata Shakur, how people perceive Assata Shakur, you know,
And Guillermo.
is based, and Guillermo is based more on your political bent,
Right.
you know, than any terrorist activity that's happening in the school.
Correct.
Everything that you talk about, I mean, Pastors for Peace are taking medical supplies. They're not, you know, so that has nothing to do with terrorism unless you consider the act of helping another human being that you don't think is worthy a terrorist act.
You know, interesting enough, they're on attack right now as part of that whole attack this year. The IRS is on them right now. They've asked for help with
The
that.
IRS?
Yes, they're trying to shut down their nonprofit status for Pastors for Peace and IFCO. And they, knowing that we work with them, we're actually one of their organizations that's part of that. So
Wow,
the connections are there.
wow. Now you guys are young, Alyssa and
Carlos.
And Carlos, I don't know, and you think I'd know Carlos? That's like, you know, joke. You know?
Very common name, very common name.
Alyssa and I remember Alyssa. I don't know. Alyssa and Carlos. Now both of you guys are young. What brought you to be politically active, and what brought you specifically to the center in City College?
So, about the building that the center is in, it was actually
The NAC building.
Yeah, the NAC building.
Okay.
It was actually made by like a prison architect, and every day I'd walk. The campus is completely gray and beige and depressing, and every day I'd walk by this bright red door with a black power fist holding a pencil with all these colorful flyers, and I got really interested in the space, but I was always working. I was going to school, working 60 hours a week, and then the tuition hikes came, and that really launched me into student organizing and the culture of organizing on campus. So as soon as I got in there, we started organizing around a 24-hour library to get to accommodate working class students and their schedules, because CUNY is a working class school. And we actually won a 24-hour library during midterms and finals week. So that's really how I got my push in there.
Okay. And Carlos?
My political awareness actually originates from my uncle. He was a self-proclaimed Marxist and was part of the Communist Party in Ecuador.
So you're Ecuadorian?
I'm Ecuadorian, correct.
And you are?
Puerto Rican and Guyanese.
And you, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
cool.
he would talk to me about, you know, the Cuban Revolution. As I got older, I started reading more about it, and actually the significance of the Cuban Revolution and what it meant for Latin America as a whole. And I became very interested in it, and I started reading and basically just diving into the Cuban Revolution. As I came to City College, like Alyssa, I would walk these halls, and somewhat depressing, and the only thing that would stand out would be this red door with a fist. And one time I opened the door and I stumbled up, there was a meeting going on about, you know, hip-hop, the genre of hip-hop, and the misogyny within it. So I sat down and we had an amazing conversation about it. You know, brothers and sisters coming together talking about, you know,
Misogynist being woman-hating, for lack of a better term.
Correct.
Okay.
And we also talked about sort of like the contradictions within hip-hop about, you know, that's why you have Tupac that has a song that would say, Dear Mama, and then you have another song that would say, I Get Around, which obviously shows some obvious contradictions in manhood through the hip-hop genre. So we engaged in this conversation. I became more involved in the center, and I realized that there was a lot of like-minded people like myself in this university, which to some extent you see a lot of people basically just walking with blinds in their eyes and not aware of what exactly is going on in the institution. Instead, they're more focused on, you know, getting their diploma and getting a career and getting a high-paying job, instead of being focused about the actual activism and the work that is being done at the university.
Yeah, you are aware that that contradiction is not limited to hip hop. That
Yeah, correct.
all artists do that.
Yeah.
You know, if you buy a Christmas album, on the same album you'll find "I'll Be Home for Christmas" and "Backdoor Santa." It's not, you know. On the same R&B or soul album, you'll have a song, "I love that man, he's the best thing that happened," and you know, and like the next song will be "That dirty dog ran off with the rent money," you know. So that in and of itself, that contradiction is artistic. You know, the only thing that an artist does, I think an artist interjects what their belief system and their ability to communicate different ideas, but those ideas can be contradictory. The problem is when you become like a one-trick pony, slave to the commercialism of the art form, and it's just, you know, you need, you know, 22 niggas and 32 whores on every song, you know, as opposed to like having something at home. Tupac could be very, very rough lyrically, but there was always a light on. He was always intelligent in his approach, and he always was true to his circumstance, because those circumstances, true, you know, we have a lot of flaws in our community, especially when you're growing up poor and everything is a struggle, you know. And sometimes the people that we love and who are closest to us are not perfect individuals themselves, you know.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up the hip hop, because that was actually the first program that we did in City College when we, you know, became active members of the Morale Shakur Center, speaking of the Universal Zulu Nation. We actually did a program on the let's call it our balance campaign, where, you know, back in the 70s and the 60s, you know, there was more of a balance on the airwaves.
Right.
You didn't
right.
have a set 12 records that's played every 5 minutes over and over again.
Correct.
So we did
and
a
those
whole,
records taking
right.
up 4 or 5 minutes a whop, so you got like a limited amount of artists with a limited amount of ideas dominating the airwaves.
Exactly. So that was actually the first program we were able to do in the city, you know, and it was very well attended, and that really gave us an opportunity to bring that issue out to the public.
Now you said you grew up in like the Harlem area, West Harlem and East Harlem. You know, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Greenwood Lake, New York, which is 50 miles upstate. Not a political setting at all. It's actually very Tea Party dominated.
Wow. So you're somewhat amazing. You're Honduran, you said Honduran Puerto Rican?
Guyanese
Puerto Rican. From a Tea Party. Wow, you're
and I still live there. I felt that City College was so important to me, and the diversity of City College was so important to me that I didn't want to get a university degree that was, you know, I only learned like white supremacist academics, and that was what I would get if I stayed where I lived.
I like the way you put that. I like the way you put that. There's a lot of people who would be very uncomfortable with the way you put that, but I think the way you put it was very, very accurate. And I think the most dangerous forms of white supremacy are those subtle forms of white supremacy that people can disavow and you know, pretend like it's not white supremacist, the things that they are doing and saying, you know. You're a history major, correct?
Yes.
Latin American history.
Yep.
And I think you said post-World War II.
Post-World War II.
Post-World War II.
Correct.
That brings you to a very volatile time in politically, especially in Latin America. You're talking about the changeover, and you know, you talk about Cuba. Cuba was dominated by, Cuba was a giant whorehouse, for lack of a better term, under the Batista regime. It was propped up by the United States and the CIA. And then in comes Castro, and it's been non-stop aggression against Cuba ever since, you know. Cuba has an embargo that by all intents and purposes is illegal in the United Nations. There's only like a couple of nations who voted for this embargo. I think the United States, Israel, and what is it, the Marshall Islands, the Falklands, some little island that we conquered after World War II. I forget it was.
Probably the Marshall Islands.
The Marshall Islands are the only three countries in the United States that voted for this embargo. You know, so it's an illegal embargo, but it's like realpolitik. It's like politics by the barrel of a gun. And it's amazing that Cuba has been able to survive as long as it has, and do as well as it has with the obstacles that have come against it. But there is a political movement that is built around. Traditionally, it was anti-African and anti-black, but now it's just there's a whole lot of personal things that you can build a career against, and Latin Americans, Latinos, especially Latinos that are not blonde-haired Latinos, is a way to garner political power just by, you know, saying a whole lot of dirty things about Latin Americans, and, you know, the DREAM Act and illegal, you know. How did this play out in the prissy little world that you come from? Was it like that? I don't think it was like that when you were growing up. This is somewhat recent, is it? Is it not? Or is it? You tell me.
I mean, I was in a little bubble when I was growing up, right? Like, no one wants to talk about racism when you're in an all-white community. And I think that a lot of the times I would do things, and it's like I would display this like really radical thinking, but I didn't know how to piece it together. I was really involved in community work. I was very involved in protecting the environment when I was younger. And the way these things translated when I went to City College was we started leading all these programs. And the reason why I got drawn to Students for Educational Rights was because I heard about their history and how they were on the ground giving resources to people and the students. So they used to hold a soup kitchen that would feed 500 people in the Harlem community. We had a book exchange that had the students could name their price. We tack on a $3 fee, and the students would get the money rather than the corporation, the bookstore downstairs. There were men...
So now you talk about food, books, you talk about medical supplies. I'm still trying to get to the terrorist stuff.
I mean...
Because nothing you mentioned has anything to do with anything other, it seems to me, than trying to make things, to make a better world, to make, you know, to like look out for some people.
But you know what, Nat, actually it is historically with the way this government treats these type of programs. You know, having been, you mentioned I was in the original Black Panther Party. And we didn't really come under attack until they attacked our survival programs, our free food programs, our breakfast for children programs, our medical clinics, busing the prisons. That's when they really attacked us. You know, when we were carrying weapons and patrolling the the police, and all that was going on, they didn't really look at us as a threat until we began to do those survival programs. And you know, as students here, and we've been fortunate to have a few more on this station, you know, before that. And if they were your regular, ordinary college students who use their free time to play bid whist and spades and drink beer and do smoke weed and do nothing, outside of that, then they would have never came under attack. But the things that Lisa's talking about, you know, getting into the politics and so forth, that's why they attacked the center.
I mean, that was the biggest threat of the Guillermo Morales Asada Shakur Center, is that it created a space where students could go in there and think critically, right? And that was the biggest threat to the administration and New York City and the country as a whole. For students and people as a whole to like wake up and ask these big questions. Like, so I was working with undocumented students to help pass to put pressure on Governor Cuomo to pass the New York State Dream Act. And they were asking these very small questions. But and then when I came to the table, I was like, we need to start asking broader questions, right? Like, why are people leaving Mexico, Central America, South America to come to this place and work in subpar conditions, right? These are the big questions that we need to ask, and those are the type of questions that were being asked at the Guillermo Morales Asada Shakur Center, right? What is gentrification? We were allowing people to like define what gentrification is, what the ills of capitalism. We were informing people about Marxism, educating people about indigenous struggles in Latin America and in the Caribbean, how our people have struggled, and there's been a constant struggle over the years, and people continue to struggle to this day in our communities and in the small like favelas, if you would call, of New York City, because they exist, even though a lot of people don't want to acknowledge them.
I'm going to ask a rhetorical. You were going to say something, so I'm going to let you say what you're going to say.
I just wanted to say that the reason why they think we're so dangerous is that we were exposing gaping holes within the institution and showing people exactly why the institution was not in their favor. Something that we were doing was the 16 Days Against Gender Violence. And as I was a student, there was this page called CCNY Secrets, where one man admitted to molesting students while they were sleeping in the libraries. Another man admitted to raping a woman on campus. And people kept on coming forward and talking to me about the fact that people were getting raped and the school didn't have proper ways of addressing things. And then when I personally had to file a complaint against someone, when I faced the bureaucracy, the school couldn't do anything to mitigate those things. So in the center, we were protecting people. I had to have someone walk me to class because stalkers were, I had a stalker. And we were having conversations about gender violence, LGBTQ violence, and why the university is complicit in these things.
Why do you think, and this is somewhat rhetorical, but you're both extremely intelligent, and God knows you're intelligent and wizened. Why do you think that there is so much focus on Latin American and Caribbean immigrants? But there seems, because I live in what is now the East Village. I mean, it used to be Lower Side, it used to be Lower East Side, now it's hoity-toityer, so it's the East Village. And one thing that is abundantly clear when you live in the East Village is that there are a lot of people there speaking a lot of different languages. There's a whole lot of immigrants. And nobody is running down the French talking about you come from a communist country and you're an illegal. And nobody is running down immigrants from Russia, even though immigrants from Russia have a crime cartel reputation and a reputation for female slavery and child slavery and whatnot, I'm not an investigator of child slavery per se, but there have been incidents that have reported that there is indeed a Russian mafia alive and well and engaged in this kind of activity. But the whole political bent seems to be centered toward Latin Americans and Caribbeans who by birth are indigenous to these lands in the first place. I'm wondering, do you notice this? And if you notice this, give me some insights as to what you think is motivating this.
I think what's motivating this is that our country is founded in genocide of indigenous people, and it's founded in anti-blackness. And the closer you are to blackness, the less you are accepted within society. And we see this over and over again when we see people assimilating, like immigrants assimilating into American politics or American society, where they completely divorce themselves from their struggles at home.
Carlos, you have some insight. That was I'm glad you said that, not me, because yeah.
I would say we're more visible. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm talking from my experience of working with undocumented workers and working with undocumented students.
Visible meaning they can see what you look like, whereas
Exactly.
the other
It's easy
ones
to
are
racially
like,
profile a person that looks like Brother Shep or myself, you know. Because we stand out. Because we're colored folks.
Okay,
right? Because we're colored folks.
Black and brown.
I gotta, you gotta.
It's
Lucy explain.
right.
Well,
It's not a coincidence that when you talk about like the immigration issue in the U.S., images of people that look like myself pop up. But yes, like you said, there are immigrants from France, from Russia, from parts of Africa, from all over Europe. However, we're easily targeted.
And black and brown people have fought in every single war this country has
Correct.
ever
We have.
done. And when they talk about Lafitte and the French army, it was not a French army, it was a Haitian army. And black and brown people fought in the Revolution, black and brown people fought in World War II, black and brown people have been citizens of this country since before this country was a country. So the racial programming, the racial profiling in and of itself does not have anything to do with how American you may or may not be. The racial profiling, well, it's a program, you know, it's
You know, that history part is so important. That was actually part of the center's three of the demands deal with that issue particularly. At one time, City College had the largest Black Studies department in the United States. They no longer exists. It's just a program that's part of political science department now. And you know, the attack on Leonard Jeffries and Professor Smalls and on and on and on. And that was one of our objectives, was to restore the Black Studies department back again. Also, the Women's Studies department was eliminated. You know, just from what Lisa said, you know, just the whole attitude against women. That's just all throughout, you know, CUNY itself, you know, which connects to Asada, being the first woman put on that terrorist.
As a matter of fact, there was
the Asian Studies department. That was the last. That was the third one.
Right. There was a proposal for a law that dealt with the rape of women that was argued that they would pass the bill, and it was a bill that has been passed over and over again. But what they wanted was to remove the section of the bill that dealt specifically with indigenous American women, you know, which is kind of, you know, far freaking out. Now you study history, Latin American history, and you live in an age where you have access to information from every place, from your tablet, from your telephone. You're gonna have access to of information from your watch in a little while. It's out now. So every lie that they document and that you are required to spout to pass tests in school, you have access to the actual events that took place. How does that play into the education system, where you have people telling you all of this wacky stuff that is not in any way based in reality, and then you have access to documents, to actual information of the way things went down, and you are being attacked, you know, for like trying to bring some truth to the equation? How, you know, we didn't go through that. We had to dig up books from up in an old library with cobwebs on it. Now you have all the information at your fingertips all the time.
I mean, it's kind of sad because, yes, we do have all the information that we need at our fingertips, but a lot of people choose not to use it. Right? And I think it's a personal choice that you make. You can either sit in a classroom of 30 plus students and basically just drink the Kool-Aid that the professor is feeding you, and you just sit there and absorb everything like a sponge, or you become an active academic, or you become an active student, in which that was sort of like the people that you found at the center, people that were that wanted to become active students. So you would learn theories about, you would learn theories of Foucault, you would learn about Marxism, you would learn about Audre Lorde, and these things were great. I mean, you would also learn stuff about John Locke, and then you would either you just did your work and moved on, or you would go and have conversations with people that actually understood this material and sort of put academics into practice, and that's what we offered at the center, and that's what a lot of students did. What has come from it is that the CUNY Central, the administration has threatened, has attacked students personally. There's been 2 students who have been suspended from the university because they engaged in political activity. There's a policy on trying to be passed called the expressive activities policies, which is basically put limitation on it would basically criminalize dissent on campus grounds. So no protesting, and if you're going to protest, you must get a signed form saying that you have consent to protest. No flying, any loud noises or shouting would lead to suspension from university, and even the law enforcement bringing to campus to arrest you. And this is sort of like the environment in which has been created in CUNY. It's that you can learn.
When did these stipulations go into effect? I mean, some of these stipulations are far freaking out.
The attacks on student activists are actually unprecedented. I was trying to connect with students from New Paltz who have been expelled from school and fought it and got back into the school system. And CUNY administration did something really interesting here when they expelled the 2 students, was that they put school charges on them, suspended them, but then also pressed criminal charges for the same charges because the school suspensions were going nowhere for them. So we're seeing a coup of CUNY where it's not even the administrators in charge, it's the NYPD. And the NYPD holds so much power, and public safety holds so much power within the way the school operates. When I first started going to CUNY in 2009, I would go to class and I'd see maybe 1 or 2 public safety officers on the way. I see 15 now, and they make no kind of, they don't hide the fact that they know who you are. They don't hide the fact, they could be blatant about it, and there's nothing you can do because they're the ones in charge, and there's no oversight of the way that they can treat student activists.
And you know what? During that period of time when, some of the community came back, we actually had a pretty good relationship with security there. There were no real problems with them. We did what we had to do, and they stayed out of our way, and we stayed out of their way. And only when this recent attack came up, that all of a sudden their real face has come about now. So there are FBI and national security agents on that campus, getting that whole connection with General Petraeus teaching in CUNY, and also the connection.
Yeah, how did
They call them Powell Institute that's on the campus.
ROTC
whole
back on campus.
ROTC is back. Marines walking through the halls in full dress uniforms now. And this is supposed to be a university.
Wow.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Tell them about Petraeus.
I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, students were really outraged at having General Petraeus teach on campus.
What does he teach?
Macaulay Honors College.
Yeah, he teaches at the Macaulay Honors College, and I think his class is Dawn of New America, or
What the hell is that?
I don't know.
National Police Security State.
Wait a minute, hold on.
That's what it is.
Hold on. The Dawn of New America.
Yeah.
The Dawn of New America.
Yeah, I might not have the wording right, but it's basically a new age upon us of the FBI, of having,
imperialism.
yeah, of American imperialism, if we're going to be blunt about it.
That's new. See, I'm trying to. Wow. This is deeper than. And it was deep when I invited you on, but you just upped the ante considerably. Marines patrolling the school. I don't see how it's American.
Put them 3 Ks in there, and that's what American that it is. American.
I just don't think it's American to have a dialogue about a disagreement as to our relationship with a place like Venezuela or Cuba, or our relationship between Africa. I don't believe that it is un-American to have a conversation about the pros and cons of capitalism versus Marxism versus socialism. I think it's very American to actually discuss different opinions and try to reach some sort of conclusion that makes the world a better place. I think that should be and could be the mission and the mission statement of America.
Tell the audience about the property, the whole elimination of the First Amendments to the Constitution and our Fourth Amendments against legal search and seizure.
Yeah. So the school, when they closed down the center, we were not allowed near it. They locked down every single building on campus. And when they were taking the property out, it's now in the Bronx. The school held it, didn't tell us where it was for, I would say, like months,
About
right?
about a month and a half.
A month and a half, and then sends me an email like, oh, you're due for pickup in like 3 days.
Due for what?
We have to pick it up within 3 days. So we were like, administration, like, what, are you just trying to throw our stuff out? Like, you took it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came that night illegally. That Sunday night, they
Yeah.
came. Interesting, it was the same night after we had a benefit for Sekou Odinga, who was one of the people who locked up as political prisoners for free inside of Shakur. But that same evening, that Sunday evening after the event, they took all the property out, painted the whole center white.
I'm not gonna do that alone. I'm not gonna touch that.
They painted the door. Matter of fact, if people can see this button, this is what was on the door, the fist.
Right.
Painted that white, changed the name of it. What is it, the Careers? And
Who's the head of City College?
we're talking, well,
We have President Lisa Stanio Kokio, who is the president. We
He's
have,
Asian?
No, she's
Italian.
Italian. We
Italian.
have the Chancellor, William Kelly, but in charge of that little area is Student Affairs Vice President Juan Arena, who was also in charge of the expulsion or suspension of the 2 students. So someone told me that she said that, the space was open to her, so she just took it for that, and it gave no regard to the organizing or the history or the legislature.
And they took the space. What reason did they give you for wanting the space in the first place?
It's convenient. It's convenient to go upstairs and have a career in professional
Well,
development.
America was convenient. It was all convenient. It's like,
And we actually met with her and the other vice presidents, a delegation of us, and about the fact that they took the property illegally, and they agreed to get back to us, and they never did. They never communicated with us. They still refused to meet with us.
Yeah.
Hence, that's part of one of the 10 demands, that they immediately meet with our board of directors / coordinating committee, and they won't meet with us.
What do you mean by convenient? Convenient for what?
Convenient for them. They wanted a space so they could have interviews and meetings, and so the space is basically useless.
Interviews and meetings.
Yeah, and our career center isn't functioning, not because it doesn't have space, but because it doesn't have very much funding. It doesn't have enough staff. And I'm all for, getting students the material goods they need to survive, but the way they did it, it was very transparent that they just did it to take away the center rather than giving any students any kind of resources, because we gave more resources to the students
That's right.
than that center could ever give. And we were, I mean, a lot of us gave each other connections into jobs more than that, whatever.
I mean, one of the sort of like one of the things that was said by the administration actually, and I quote one of Juana Reyna's letters. She said that they needed a space for experiential learning.
Experiential learning.
Exactly. So like learning through experience. That's
That's a
basically what
contradiction in terms.
I mean, it is because that's what the center was, right? It was a center. It was where people can actually learn through experience, right? So soup kitchens, book exchanges, you know, like food cooperatives. These things, students would engage actively in learning and actually engaging the community and like learning from
But
each other.
that only makes sense if you say it makes sense in the sense that you experience school, you know. But learning through experience is experience, you know. You go to school because you don't have the experience. Once you have the experience, you know, you don't actually need the class, you just need the diploma.
I mean, but that's what they want to make
So
it.
I don't even know what the hell that means.
CUNY wants to be a diploma factory. It doesn't want us to learn or think critically or engage in conversations with each other. 'Cause we're
Experiential learning, that's deep. I like that. I like that.
That's
I'm
sort of
all
like the language that has been fed to us constantly every time we try to engage with administration. It's you know, they give us a sly smirk and a smile and with, you know, like open-ended answers that really don't mean anything to us.
Right, that's
right?
that's
I mean,
stupid.
And I think for the viewers,
experiential learning, and I don't go to CUNY, and I'm old enough to tell a person there what they say is stupid if it's stupid. And experiential learning in a college is stupid, you know. Experience is the Peace Corps. Experience is the military. Experience is housing court. Experience is divorce. Experience is raising children as a single parent, being a latch. That's experience. You go to school because you don't have experiences and you want to learn. Learn enough to get out so that you can be somewhat competitive in a world where everyone else has experience. So I don't even know what experiential learning means.
we're still trying to figure that out, actually.
And I mean, the administration doesn't want to explain to us what they're meaning either. When President Lisa had a roundtable where students and community members pressed her about where the nature of the demand came from, she talked with us for a little bit, gave us no answers, and then stormed out because we were upset that she wasn't giving us any kind of answers in any sort of way. And they seemed incredibly smug and condescending about the fact that they suspended students, that there's police on campus, that they pepper sprayed someone as they were
Pepper sprayed someone.
Yes, at one of the protests, there is live stream footage of someone getting pepper sprayed as they're down, as they're being zip tied.
And someone else getting arrested while he had a child in his hands.
Right.
Wow. Why do you think they're so vehemently opposed to any kind of political astuteness or you know?
You know, a lot of that goes back to, I remember you mentioned CUNY, like when I went to CUNY in the 70s, it was free. And we had free tuition, we had open admissions, and the type of student, being brown and black, that was, you know, predominantly in CUNY at that time, were from the hood, we were from the streets. And there was no real way they could threaten the political activities we dealt with. I mean, South Africa was still going on then. The Vietnam War was still, you know, in effect during that time. You know, there was a lot of student organizing and protests, and they couldn't use the threat that they use on these students now of, well, we'll suspend you and you'll forfeit your tuition that you paid, because our tuition was free. And we would tell them, like, well, if you stop this or do that, we'll burn the school down. And they knew we meant it. We weren't playing any games back then. Now they have all this military on the campus. They're threatening the students with suspensions, with expulsion, with losing their money, not letting them get money. Okay, you know, and the whole elimination again of the Black Studies and Women's Studies and Asian Studies and all departments that have been eliminated to teach about history of
Oh, I
struggle.
think we got a call. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mesmerized. Turn the caller up a little bit. As a matter of fact, is there somebody lurking over there? You turn the caller up a little bit so we can hear the caller, and we'll let the caller ask a question. I'm sorry. I'm captivated by my guest.
Yeah, Nat, thank you for your investigative reporting there.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
I'm just curious what's happened to Jeffrey, Professor Jeffries at City College. What's happening with the Black Studies program?
Well, Professor Jeffries has retired at this point. There are capable professors there, but again, it's not a department anymore. It's just a program without funding, basically. That's part of the political science department, and that's happening all across the country.
Political.
Yes, Black Studies is now part of political science.
Social science.
Social science. Yes.
Social science.
Which is under
What does
the
that
Colin
mean?
Powell School.
What does that mean?
Social science is all of the disciplines like political science, Black studies, women's studies, Latino studies, and it's really interesting because I'm not gonna, on my degree, I'm gonna get Colin Powell on
Institute.
school on my degree instead of City College School of Poli-Sci because it basically colonized our department.
Because Colin Powell went to City College, so that's
And
the
has
excuse.
tons of money.
Yeah. Mhm.
But and thank you for the question. That's a. Do you have another question?
Yeah, Nat, I can't quite understand what they said. I mean, can I go to City College and find a Black Studies program?
No. For you can find a social
Find
studies
some classes.
Right.
You can take classes, but you won't get a diploma in Black and Puerto Rican studies or Africana studies. You can't get that anymore.
They have a small little office where you can minor in it. You can't major.
minor in it.
You can't major in Black studies, but you can minor.
Okay. So the short answer is kind of, sort of, but not much
Very
of.
good. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. That's interesting because all of these things that they are grouping together, they separate politically when it is expeditious to seek political office, like women's issues. They bring women's issues, the issue of abortion, the issue of women's health care, the issue of equity in the job market for women. That's a separate issue that people campaign for and win and lose political office for. The issue of gay marriage, of homosexual rights, of the rights of lesbian, gay, transgender people, that's a separate issue that people campaign for and win and lose political office for. But in school, you want to group all of these and make them little minors that nobody knows about. But in the real world, in the world of experiential learning, these things, these separate issues can dictate whether or not you have political power for decades, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So it's interesting that first of all that General Petraeus, who's accused of
Mass
whoremongering, but would actually be teaching in the school that they would give you answers like experiential learning and social sciences, and group all of these issues up that affect people directly where they live, direct their ability to learn, ability to earn, ability to have proper health care, the ability to just do a lot of things, provide benefits for their families, indeed to have families. It seems to be deliberate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a coincidence that, majors like the Black Studies Department is now a minor. It's no coincidence that now the Asian Studies Department is but a room, It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not these things are not coincidence, right? And it's important to note that the attack on the Morales Shakur Center is not an isolated event. It's not an event that only affects City College students or CUNY as a whole. It's an event that affects the city as a whole, right? Because the attack on the Morales Shakur Center is linked to gentrification. Is linked to lack of access to higher education for Black and Latinos around the city. It's the privatization of higher education. It's the militarization of our cities. The militarization of our schools. These are the type of links that we're connecting, and we're doing it successfully because we're seeing these connections, right? It's not a coincidence that now we have like elevated police presence in our schools. It's not a coincidence that financial aid and TAP are being cut in half. It's not a coincidence that, we have investors or, they're expanding different programs in City College. These things are not coincidence. And I think
even with the geographical area, it's called Hamilton Heights now.
Correct.
It's no longer, City College is no longer in Harlem. Now it's in Hamilton Heights. Even though it's surrounded by a Black and brown population, and in general, and in particular the young generation, the center was a safe space. We were able to actually stop gang wars in the projects.
That's my music. It's coming off a little. We got about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Wow,
Okay.
wow.
But
This
we
went
were able
fast.
to do that in the center.
Something I want to note is that right after the center closed, Colin Powell gave $5 million to the school, and they started launching these attacks on our Muslim prayer space.
Wow.
And started launching all of these things now that the activists were scattered. Now that we were focusing on the center, they trickled in with all of their
How can we
new
get in touch?
policies.
You got a minute. You got less than a minute to tell us everything we need to know and do.
Okay, you can call us at 212-726-2301. You can reach us at our website, moraleshakur.org. defendmoraleshakur.org. I'll try to rush this. You can email us at moraleshakursc@gmail.com. Facebook, just look for Morales Shakur. and
Go
you'll
to your
find
search
us.
engine,
You'll
type in
find us.
Morales Shakur. If you have spell check on, if you misspell Morales, it'll fix it for you and ask you, do you mean?
And we have a benefit of National Black Theater on Friday.
We're going to have these
Political
people back
prisoners.
because this is an important issue and they are so astute. I want to thank you for joining me. They have captivated me for an audience for an hour, and we'll see you next week. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.
No censor.